You know what I thought of? We didn't introduce it. We're in season two, and we didn't
I
introduce.
think we're gonna I was gonna wait for that watching Billions. I was catching up because they're releasing the final season, I think August 11th. And what I've noticed about Billions, and I was so intrigued, like over the seasons, I'm like, dang, it's a lot of black people. Not a lot, but for it to be a about billionaires and AGs going after the bad guys, which are billionaires, there are a lot of positions in these high tech companies that are black, but they're not portrayed as the token black person. Like usually you'll see like in a professional setting like that, it's all white males and a couple of white women. But they're and it's kind of odd when you see it because it's like, dang, it's okay. Are you trying to do? Is this an agenda? Because there's a lot of black folks, but it's weird. We shouldn't even think of it like that. It should be a norm to see black people doing tech or black people in government or in city positions, but they make it a norm. And that's why I looked up Adam Sorkin and Brian Kopelman last night to see their backgrounds and who they really were. And it seemed like they're just trendy white guys that
Mhm.
like to wear Jordans and know about the culture. Even the verbiage in the scripts is like, oh, something Quest Love or some. I bet you didn't know about Tribe Called Quest. Like these are trendy, rich white men. And I feel like that's is brilliant. It's probably the best show on TV
Mm. And
because
that's
of our representation, and they created
okay.
as a norm for us.
I'll have
Wait,
to
with
check it out.
Billions, I
Yeah, billionaires.
remember seeing the poster for it some time ago. And, because you were talking about tokenism, Tequoia, and I never saw the show. All I knew was the poster. And it was, all these white people. And then the one dark skin, beautiful Black woman. And it's on one end, I'm like, yeah, girl, get money. But then on the other end, not having seen the show, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
token, diversity quota. But I didn't pass any judgment because I hadn't seen the show or anything. And you consider the practicality of it all too. You know that these producers are just trying to like not get canceled nowadays. But again, haven't seen the show, so it is cool to hear this. But on the flip side, one of the show's competitors, a show that I did watch and really love, Succession, have the opposite issue, right? Because um, they had 4 seasons total. They officially finished the show. Off the top of my mind, I think they only had 2 major Black characters. That might be wrong, maybe 3 or 4, but 2 that I can remember. Sanaa Lathan as a lawyer, and I don't remember the actress's name, but she played Jackie, I think her name was. She was the assistant to one of the main Roy children, Kendall Roy. Um, and watching the first and second and then the third season, I saw them all in succession. I, like thought, okay, there's not a lot of Black people. But for me, it wasn't so much an issue because like Billions, like you were saying, realistically speaking, for this show in particular, they are taking a very realistic approach, especially since this family is supposed to emulate actual conglomerate families in our society. So I kind of understood that they kind of needed it to mirror what was realistically there, especially since their characters are going to be verbatim what we understand of these type of people. If we're talking about rich, bratty white kids, they would need to be rich, bratty white kids in the environment that we're used to them being in. And
Mhm.
so for me, it wasn't so much a takeaway that there wasn't so much diversity. And they still plugged it in here and there, of course, where they could. I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or bad thing because, like you were saying, Toy, it's also good to show what it could be versus what it is.
Yeah.
But it didn't hurt me so much here because I felt like for Succession in particular, it was telling quite a very specific story where it made sense and that their world was surrounded by people who looked like them. It fed to their characters and to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I and we can go ahead and start it and we can just carry this on into the show. But again, I wanted it to be Black creators. I wanted it to be Black writers because to me it would all make sense, right? Like, oh, okay, that's why y'all mentioned Questlove and Q-Tip and you were in Jordans and you shout out Jordan Kobe and da 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 da. But it's three white execs. The writers are white. And when you watch it, just watch season 5, or season 6. Watch season 6, the last season, and then they portray the Black woman as a Black queen. So I'm like, y'all are really messing me right now. Like, I respect it. I love it.
They don't have any Black staff writers on that show?
Ooh, that's a good question.
No, the staff writer they did list, his name is Leo, Lio. I forgot his last name. Lio. And it sounded like he was Jewish or white. I feel like there had to be one or two on there. I haven't really dug in and done my research because all of the stuff, even I was thinking about today because I finally finished season 6. The stuff that they wrote, I'm like, okay, ain't nobody that Black white. Like somebody had to be Black, right? Writing I could write white. I would have you would hire me because you want the Black flavor, the Black gel on the biscuit. So somebody had to. But yeah, it was amazing. It made me smile. I felt good watching it because I know the majority is white men, white, rich, filthy, stanky, rich men watching it. And to see another perspective that we're accepted in that community made me even feel more great.
And in a way, according to you, that felt natural and not like forced, which
it felt, the crazy part, it felt more natural watching Billions with the interpretation with us in it versus Shonda Rhimes and Bridgerton. Because I'm like,
well, yeah. I think I understand what you're saying because it's easier for you to relate to. You can correlate what you see on show with what you read in the news with Black billionaires.
Yes.
So it's easier for you to see and imagine a Black person in a position of power now than you can think of a Black person in a position of power back in, turn of the century or Victorian England.
Right, because that's not true with all the racism and then the history books. Yes, Charlotte was Black, but they really put her underneath a pillow and didn't really want to tell her story because she was Black. But these boardrooms, these I was watching the Green Light. Tequoia doesn't like it. I was watching Green Light, and the execs over HBO, they showed a couple of Black people and Asians in there. So I was like, that makes me feel even better, like seeing this representation on national television. Like, we do exist, we do push buttons, we do sign off on stuff. But
so I got a question for you.
Yes.
Before our guest comes on, with the onset of so many people of color and particularly women of color in executive DEI positions in Hollywood being fired and leaving, do you feel that we're going to continue to see that progress in content, or are we going to regress back to Friends and Frasier days when you rarely saw people of color on network television?
I don't know how Caucasians think, but usually when they see Black people on the rise, like Black Wall Street, they will, because they're hiring us because it was a lot of noise, right? There's not that much representation in the offices. So it was like a school of hire of Black execs and workers, right? But when they see us forming our own businesses and production studios and films and doing without them, they digress because really it was a favor. Oh, well, cool. Y'all got it going on. All right, cool. Whew. Now we don't need to, do this on paper because we don't look like we're racist. So I do think it's going to digress, like affirmative action. They're taking away ethnic studies. They're taking away all of that because now Black people with money are putting back into the Black community, like Black Wall Street, like back in the day. They woke up. So that's what I feel.
I feel like, I don't know. I don't think I've seen so much of the putting back into the community. Maybe because I'm in LA, but I feel like I hear a lot of the opposite, that people still really aren't investing so much.
They're doing it out here.
I hope so. I
In
hope
these
so.
different states like Tennessee, like they're creating Black studios, and then plus with the BEC got going on, there's coalitions happening, even with the Chinese that we talked about there. So the minority groups are forming. They're forming. They're building quietly. And in a minute you'll hear them making noise. But right now the build is quiet.
That's good. That's good. I mean, I didn't know that they were firing the DEIs, and I heard about like in the academic field that they're pushing back on ethics studies, which I still think is a stupid idea, because part of the whole issue is that people come of age and they're not well versed in our country's history and disparity. So that should be there at all time, no matter how well any group is doing. That should be standard, education. It's literally our country's history. So that should just always be there. The firing might be a bit preemptive, because even though we see changes, it's not like it's, I like to see change and then have the change sustained for a while before people start pulling back and saying, all right, maybe we can do this on our own now. I'm like, sure, maybe, but again, how did we get here in the first place? It's because people couldn't be trusted. And I don't know, maybe I'm just extremely jaded, but I feel like internally a lot of people aren't really there yet, or they would genuinely want to do that. I don't know. I have like a mixture of opinions on this, because I'm also not of the opinion that we necessarily need to be included. I know we talked about this in another podcast episode, but on a certain level, the inclusion is necessary. And if we let go of the safeguards and regulations that help that happen, I don't really know what that would look like. But like you said, we still have other things happening. Like we have Shondaland, we have, I'm losing all the names, Tyler Perry, we've got Jordan Peele, Issa Rae, who I love that they have these different communities going on, and smaller ones, like individual indie world stuff too. So I guess if that keeps growing, then we should be fine.
Yeah. I mean, with Tyler Perry, and shout out to him, shout out to TP, with him in power on purchasing BET and VH1, I feel like that is a big plus. We all got to start from somewhere. There's a lot of Black independent production companies, and shout out to them too. I mean, you got to start from somewhere. But for him to have a big conglomerate like BET and VH1, I feel like we haven't had that probably since Bobby Johnson.
I'm interested to see how that's going to look. I'm really interested to see what a Tyler Perry run BET looks like. I mean, I think we have a glimpse of what it will look like with BET Plus. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I think it's going to require, like with Gold House in the Asian community, and with Tyler Perry, and with Issa Rae and Shonda Rhimes, it's going to take organizations and people who are at that level of authority to set the tone and work outside of the entertainment industry, because I think that as a whole, Hollywood is going to mirror what's happening politically. And as we regress politically, you're going to see that reflected content on television.
Absolutely.
Just that's personal.
I believe that. I believe as Black people, we need to know we have to trust our voice. We have to trust our authenticity, because if anyone hasn't noticed, our authenticity is being duplicated. They're trying to look like it, write like it, talk like it, everything is trying to be duplicated. So if you hold the power, if you hold the confidence, this is where when we go all the way back, why we had to be stripped from our confidence and our identity, because if you don't walk in who you know, you don't hold the power. So if we can continue to walk in who we are, believe who we are, and hold the power, continue to build, continue to do our projects, our independent projects, continue to build our studios, they will come. They build, you will come. But when you don't know who you are, they will create who you are. So we got to continue to change the narrative on that.
Yeah. So today, for our first episode back for season 2, we have an incredible actress. Her name is Samora Smallwood, and she is out of Canada, but she does do projects here in the US. She is a CSA winner, a creator, and an activist, and we're so happy to have her as our first guest back with Slates and Koffee. Samora.
Hi. How are you?
We're great. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Very excited. Season 2.
Yeah.
Are you in Canada now, or are you here in the States?
I just wrapped yesterday, so I'm flying back tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Awesome. Is this a television program, or is it a movie?
A film, an independent sci-fi film. It's dope. It was really
Awesome.
beautiful.
Awesome. That is my wheelhouse, sci-fi. Oh,
Yes.
That is incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about your character?
I can. You know what was so exciting about it was so the writer is a Black man, so it's all coming through that lens of the issues that are important for us. So that was one thing that really made me resonate with the script and want to sign on. But playing the character itself is with this whole AI thing that's popping off, you know, there are moral and ethical questions. Like, how far do we go in terms of giving AI life or consciousness? And then if we are only using it for its productivity and how it can serve us, then in the future we'll be like modern day slave masters. That's how I see it. And this role gave me a really good chance to explore that, because my character is not, we don't know if she's human, we don't know what her deal is, but as she kind of serves this one person, she gets to learn about her, get as close to humanity as possible, and then we cross the threshold. That was a big word salad for I like it. Let me explore themes that were important to me, and I think it's going to be dope.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to watch it. Will it come out like in 2024, 2023?
I think they are hoping for fall 2023. That's what I'm hearing from the director. And you'll have to send me links to your projects. I love to see what's up, and you know, I'm with that. Even if they're private, a lot of people send festival links. I'm not going to share it or post it. I just love to see what artists are creating.
Will do.
Yeah. Well, we read your description and we read that you're originally from Canada. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was born in Eastern Canada. My father's West African. My mom is from Newfoundland, and I am currently
where in West Africa?
Cabo Verde.
Oh, okay. Nigeria.
Nice. My partner's Nigerian. Sick.
Oh, yes. Love that.
That's amazing. Well, today's topic is tokenism and diversity. And we were just talking about how sometimes, you know, people of color are the token gender or ethnicity in these roles. And we're talking about, one of my favorites was billions, and how billions represent Black people in a very prestigious and esteemed profession, which is trading. Trading and government, I guess it's an all bowl of power, and how they portray Black women. So that's like the rare jewel of the bunch. But sometimes you do see the Black heavyset girl best friends with the, you know, Caucasian woman, or the one Asian with the friend. So what is your partake on that?
It's one of my favorite topics. I am an activist at heart, and I love storytelling so much. And generally speaking in life, I'm always, wanting to promote the traditionally and historically excluded and marginalized voices. And in my own art, that's what's so important to me. And then I was ACTRA Toronto, so that's SAG-AFTRA Sister Union, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee co-chair for 4 years. So that's work that we would do all the time, is constantly building those relationships in the industry to make sure that people who don't come from our communities or from the lived experience know how important that is, because there are some people who just don't get it. They don't know they're doing it. They're only writing from their perspective. And because the status quo has been that those people, generally speaking, white people or white men, are the ones that are in running show, top of show, writing and creating, and in the position to offer green lights and funding, then it makes sense that they're writing from their perspective. So we see these tropes year after year after year. But now we're in a time where audiences aren't about that. Like my partner and I, who I mentioned before, like if there are no lead characters who are Black in a story, and it's that the narrative is not about them and it's not about their suffering, we just won't watch, right? We're all so busy. You just don't have the time. And now we get to entertainment's been democratized. We can watch and show with our viewership and our money what we're going to see. I don't know. Have you seen They Cloned Tyrone? Have any of you watched that?
Yes,
Not
seen
yet.
it. I've seen it.
Pretty
Is
solid.
it good?
Yeah, it's
No
tough because we're in a
spoilers,
strike.
no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. And actually, I should not discuss it at all. All I'm going to say is that I loved it. But when it comes to tokenism on screen, it's so wild. I was just talking about this 2 days ago to a producer friend of mine. We're going to work on this indie feature together. And I was saying, like, you watch stuff that you used to like, and it hasn't aged well.
Mhm.
Like, and sometimes we just forget, like now it's so glaring when you watch something, and there will be this thing I was watching the other day, this Black woman off the top. She's so funny, but she's the butt of this joke. And it's kind of how she looks that is the joke. And there was a time where it was so acceptable to watch a show where everybody was white. And it was just like, that's what it is. We just accept that. And then as you watch those shows, you'll see, oh, but the person at the front desk, the security guard, the nurse, all these people whose sole purpose in a story is to serve this white lead protagonist are all people of color. They're all on this periphery. And that's what I think is so damaging about tokenism.
Yeah.
From just a base standpoint of like that kind of understanding we've had, that you can add people of color to your story, but they're either always in service of a white protagonist or what their goals are. They don't necessarily have a life of their own. Like, we don't know anything about these characters. And then for so long, it felt like people were saying, yeah, we'll greenlight this, we'll greenlight that, but we really want to talk about the trauma of this community. We really want to talk about the suffering of this community. And I'm not dogging it, right? Like, there's a lot of beautiful performances, stunning storytelling that was important, I think, to people understanding what certain communities have been through and the history of it. But when that's the only story that you see, or the only opportunities that these phenomenal actors of color get to really show out what they can do, it's upsetting. It's very, very upsetting.
I just wanted to speak real quick to something that you said about you and your partner getting to a place where you realize if it's got a full white cast, you're not really interested. That was a moment I had. I don't remember what year. I remember one specific movie that was out. I think it was The Other Woman, Kate Upton. I forgot who else was in the movie. It was some time ago. And it was that moment in my life where I realized if I just no longer relate to that. You know, we grew up with white mainstream media where it was expected because it was a default. It was the only thing we really had. Everything was centralized. So you just had to watch it if you wanted to keep up and have entertainment. And there came a time when a friend of mine, I'm just going to throw out a random title. It's not going to be accurate, but I remember asking her what she thought of this movie that came out. But it was like a Black movie. Let's just say I said About Last Night. And like, how did you like About Last Night? And she was like, oh, I didn't see that. And I thought that was strange. And she's like, well, that's not for me. And I was like, but every time we come in, we talk about, again, I'm just going to throw a random show, like talk about Friends, or we talk about whatever white, regular show. And we're just expected to have seen that. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like the first time my eyes opened and realized that everything outside of white media is just a derivative, and it's meant for certain communities. It can't be for everyone. And it goes, like, for me, I can see that and realize that's a big error. But for some other people, because it's so ingrained in us to think if there aren't white leads, it's an optional choice. I don't have to watch it. You have to be into that culture to be into it. And that for me was weird. So then I got to this place where I didn't feel the want. I felt kind of repulsed by seeing full white cast, right? Mm-hmm. So I wasn't watching a lot of movies because that was the majority of them. But I interned at this theater company, and they put on this play called Appropriate. And I don't like spoilers or anything, so I didn't read up on the play or anything. I just went in blindfolded. And as soon as I got there, I was kind of pissed, but I was like, all right, the tickets were free. I can't complain. But it was a full white cast. I was like, worst comes to worst, I'll leave during intermission. Mm-hmm. But I'm watching this story, fully white cast, but it was about a family. So I'm like, all right, that's okay, leeway there. It's a family. Maybe it's not a mixed family. It's a fully white family. But I'm listening to the dialogue, and I'm like, something about this, clearly it's got to be written by a white guy. It's a white family, right? But there's this thing about the dialogue that tells me this white man knows about life, like trauma and struggle and like other things. It almost seems like maybe he grew up in a Black community somehow. And I didn't really understand it until intermission came. I decided to look into the program, and I had to look up his name because I forgot it. The playwright was Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, which is actually a Black playwright. And he was writing, and it's just so wild to me that even though it was this white family, it was so loud and clear that this person was actually, it's shown through his work that it was written by a person of color without it being so like tropey or stereotypical. And Toy, you were mentioning earlier how like the writers for Billions kind of did something similar, being giving the characters something more natural that didn't, it seemed like they did their research essentially.
Like Shameless too. Shameless. It's like when Black
totally
people
1000%. What's her name? Dana something, right? Dana North.
Yes.
One of the creators. It's like her story. I met her. You just know. You literally just know.
And I'm like, it reminds me of getting changed out of the couch, how they got to change out the couch and you got to put the plug in the next door neighbor to get electricity. Like, how do y'all know about this? But the struggles was too close to home. So
yeah. And you're like, oh.
Okay, so that brings me to think of a question. So clearly having an all-white cast in a project, there's a visceral reaction that we have to that now since we're so accustomed to seeing more diversity. Does the Black experience and the vernacular that we use in our speech and our shared experiences shining through in a script, does that do something to us as viewers in a way that having all white writers room would? Is there a difference? So like if you watch something like say Friends or Frasier, but let's say Friends and Frasier 2.0, and we have a more diverse writers room, but it's still a predominantly white cast, would we be able to relate more to that now with more diverse content in the writing, even if the writers?
Such a good question. This is like the real crux of where we're at, because there's a lot at stake in our industry right now, from writers to actors, it goes without saying, and to content in general. Like it's not just streamers that change the way we consume and make content. It's also the pandemic. We started watching things differently. It takes a little more for me personally to get me out of the house and to a theater. That's a very interesting topic, because the whole thing swirling about IP and this obsession with like being so risk averse now in the industry and being like, well, we'll make Fast 10 or we'll make the 8th of a franchise versus in investing in new, fresh ideas. That's, I think, more important to me. Like to me, a new Frasier could be dope. I'll never slag off actors making a living or writers making a living. But I don't feel like the tokenism of being like, okay, well, you know what? We're going to take this formula and we're just going to drop in random people of color, random women here or there, and expect for that voice to flourish in that writer's room, given the constraints of a Frasier kind of world. Even if they say, this is Frasier, this is new Frasier, this is diverse Frasier, you could be any kind of Frasier you want. I'm more interested in a brand new idea. Swarm was such a good example of what you were talking about, of just knowing, okay, so I went into Swarm amazing show. Dominique Fishback is a G. She is such a good actor. She's such an artist. She's amazing. I just knew Donald Glover was the creator. I had no idea, but I was watching a scene between her and Dominique Fishback's character and the character Marissa. I can't remember her name. Bailey. Chloe Bailey? Yeah.
Yeah.
Chloe Bailey. I'm watching this scene and it's two girlfriends. We've all had a friend, right? Who's like, not a friend of me, but you know, you're on that line where your friendship maybe like busting at the seams. You've been friends a lot of time. You're both evolving and growing. And it's like, are we going to stay friends? I'm watching the scene and I'm like, a woman wrote this 100%. A woman wrote this, a Black woman wrote this. I know it. So I had to stop. And that's when I found out that it was Janine Sabers, I think is her name. Is that right?
Saber, yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I knew. So that really does shine through when you're watching it. You could just hear, like, even for you on that stage show, they were white actors, but you knew this person's been somewhere and knew something. That's my lived experience. That is more interesting to me than like plopping random diverse actors, quote unquote, or diverse stories into existing IP. It is so important. And when you talk about people who don't see stuff, I tell my friends this stuff, like we really need to watch stuff. You need to be looking for things to watch and that's how you call your allies out and how I call my supposed allies out. It's like, if you just jump on the bandwagon and want to watch a show that's popular or a movie because that has Black people in it or Black creators or Black writers, just to take part in a conversation that will inevitably give you some kind of street cred or chips or points, then that's the problem right there. Like, what are you watching that nobody knows about? What do you look at? And what other voices do you seek out that are not going to give you center stage in a conversation that's not about you? That's like so important. And when you talk about families, you mentioned so many good things, because for me, like, I'm biracial and hella yella, obviously. So when you have a cast that's like family, and sometimes, of course, like Meghan Markle talked about this not being white enough, not being Black enough. And then I'm much more interested in projects where they're not saying, okay, this is going to be a Black show and we need Black writers and we're only appealing to a Black audience. I would just love to see us finally get to the point where we get away from this tribal or tokenist idea and just say, here's an amazing blockbuster story, and we're going to see all these actors and we are going to make a commitment to see 40% performers we don't know about. And we're going to talk to, and if we don't have Black casting directors, like in Canada, it's a big, big problem. In the US, you're so much better off with really strong and great Black casting directors. But if you don't have casting from the community who can tell you about that theater artist or that actor you don't know about, then we need to make more of an effort, because I love to watch something and discover a new voice. Like when Michaela Cole popped on the scene, it was like, yo, wow. Like, anything you make, I'll watch. You're so unique and fresh. And I don't feel like it's something where, like, me and my friends, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, we all talked about I May Destroy You. It was just stunning. I don't feel like it was a Black show, even though it was predominantly Black voices.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is SJP. I've had to mentally go through, just like that, the spinoff to Sex and the City.
I was like, what's SJP?
I knew I was with you. I was with you. This is such a fun conversation. It's all the zeitgeisty stuff, right? I knew I was with you.
And with the spinoff, I mean, all the fans of Sex and the City, there was no representation of colored people. There was no Asians. There was no colored people. There was no one. It was just strictly white women, white men.
In the fans?
No, in the show, the original series of Sex and the City, and we wanted it. We wanted it, right? Because we loved it. It was so close to home. All the stories. It was good writing from Darren. But now in the spinoff, there are my favorite, Nicole Ari Parker, and you have a Black professor, and you got I forgot her name. She's beautiful.
What's her name?
Mira Nair was the director that directed her.
Really?
I forgot. Yes,
Sarita Chowdhury.
Yes.
Sarita Chowdhury. I'm probably not saying that right. She is phenomenal. She's one of my favorite characters.
Phenomenal. Like, I love her. So
and you have the actress that plays Che.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
I'm sorry, the actor that plays Che.
Them. Yes.
Yeah.
that. Yes. She's I love Chase character. So it's refreshing to see the reboot and the different flavors in the gumbo and different perspectives, and it feels good watching it because we have our favorites on there, plus we got a new favorite cast. We got Nneka Parker, she's the Claire Huxtable on there, and I love her. So that's
very ambitious.
Yes. So that's another good example of flipping the script.
And you know what's so annoying? People who come out and try and say that the show's too woke. They've really weaponized the word woke.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect? The show was never like, super intellectual to begin with. Like, it was like women, and there's always this attack coming for, first of all, women will be the thing that save the theater. Like you saw the numbers for Barbie. Women are always the ones that we spend money, and especially Black women, like it will always fall to us to lead the charge. I really do believe this. When they're going to get it, they're really going to understand it because we're the ones that spend money on stuff.
Yeah.
Like other than like superhero projects or super violent stuff, that's where the male demographic really shines. But my mother and I are watching the show, Just Like That. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
I'm not obsessed with it. I really, really like it. My favorite character are those two characters. I don't know why I can't remember that Sarita Chowdhury's character's name. It's such a great name. But Nicole Ari Parker, I love to see. I really think that's important for us to see a woman of color who, she's just elegant and just so powerful. And she seems to have it all, but she's not pretending that it's not hard. And she's got a loving husband and kids, and she's ambitious. They always make us feel so guilty about ambition. When they were going to the Met Gala and they did that scene where she was walking down the street in the red, I almost died. It was amazing.
I mean,
I think it's a small things, and I don't know if it's a decision that Nicole made, but when she has her night scenes, she always has her hair wrapped. Like small things like that. That it translates into a community that understands that, and where people who don't have that experience, they may go, why is she always sleeping in that thing on her head? Well, it helps to have those little nuanced parts that helps fully round out the characters and make them relatable. So
yeah, I agree.
Also, I didn't realize this until season 2. So I didn't really grow up with Sex in the City. I was elementary.
Oh baby.
So never So I don't know so much about Sex in the City or Just Like That. But I didn't know until season 2 of Emily in Paris that the creator for that was actually the creator of Sex in the City. Darren Criss.
I didn't know that.
I know, I had no idea. And essentially, someone said that the vibe of Emily in Paris very much mirrors Sex in the City, maybe a little bit tamer. And it's funny because you're talking about how Just Like That has more inclusion, whereas from the get-go of Emily in Paris, you just see all these different backgrounds. You have an Asian lead, you have at least 2 or 3 Black people, which for me, seeing 3 Black people in a supporting, main supporting cast always felt like they're really doing something special here. I think New Girl was the first time I saw that, where they had 3 Black, brown people at the same time. That was new for that time to me. So yeah, I just wanted to echo that. I feel like for him and his production team, I think they were really intentional about making it a norm and making it feel very genuine and authentic, which it read right to me.
That's a very good word, intentional. That's what I think is really important, because we can feel it in all of those little small details. You know what we're going to manifest? We're going to manifest a show in Paris that has women of color. We're going to manifest a show in Paris with Black women, and you're a biracial Black woman. Okay. I will hold down the red bone part of the program. And I want to see it. Wouldn't that be nice? Because we had Lupin finally. Have you seen Lupin? It's a show based in Paris about a gentleman burglar, a cabrioleur. He's so, I have to see it. This tall, beautiful African man. Oh my God.
Wait, what's it called?
Lupin, Lupin. It is
Oh, yeah. Is it on Netflix
yeah,
or?
it is. He's so charming. He's wonderful. It's such a good show. And it's just amazing to see this show centered around this Black man. I don't know that there are enough Black women in that show. That could be a problem. But that's why we're going to manifest it. We're going to manifest a show. Wouldn't that be nice if we were all fancy and like, falling in love even in the City of Lights?
So France is my second home. Not yet, but we are manifesting. As a community, that Toya is moving to France. So
Yes, you're moving. It's out there. Ashe.
The real Paris is full of that's what I would love. You see all this tourist stuff and you hear people like you see this version. I haven't seen Emily in Paris, but my sister loves it. She loves shows where young people might or might not kiss by the end of
yeah.
season,
yeah.
right? So I haven't watched it, but I love Paris. You have to see Lupin, I'm telling you. But let's just manifest that. There are tons. There's a huge Black community.
Yeah, I watched a film on the plane coming from Paris back home, and it was about a Black nanny. I think she was African, from Ghana, and it was beautiful. The script was beautiful, how they shot it. And
what was it called?
I do not know. I tried to watch it when I got home, but I think it's definitely in French. But it was when I get it, I'll let you guys know. But
I'm gonna look it up.
In Paris is actually about Sarah Jessica Parker. She always fantasized about going to living in Paris. So they created a character with her fashion, with her sex drive to live in Paris.
You're joking.
That's it.
So it was like a spin-off of sorts.
Yes, it was supposed to be Carrie as a younger girl that she always fantasized. So it's basically Carrie in her world, living in Paris, living her life as a journalist or PR, whatever she's doing.
Yeah, she's PR marketing.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
I owe you some money. I will literally watch it. Just
so much sense now.
I had no idea.
I know, this is crazy.
Yeah. So
Wow.
And yeah, it's kind of like if they did Sex in the City all over again, it would look like that with adding the colorful more cast to it. The Asian and the Black and even French. She's even the lady in charge is French. So yeah.
It would be really good if when it came to tokenism, we could come to that more holistic kind of a story. And even when you talk about like when I've been reading some of the reviews about, just like that's too woke, blah, 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 blah. But what if it isn't perfect? What if them trying to intentionally diversify and include more equity, inclusion, and belonging in the show? What if it's not perfect? That's the other thing. When you come to, there's not that permission to fail or for things not to be perfect. There's so much pressure on Black filmmakers, writers, creators, and actors to be perfect right out of the gate. Whereas other projects, you see filmmakers that get to flop time after time after time. Okay, yeah, there are some moments where the storylines or the dialogue feel a little on the nose. Some of it does feel not perfect, but there's tons of stuff that we watch that's not perfect. There's only like a teeny tiny list of projects that are literally perfect and you would not want to change a single thing. Swarm is one of them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have changed a thing about it. But it would be nice to do.
I agree. The messier, the better. The more complex, the better. The more confusing, the better.
Yes.
Because you shouldn't walk away with something that's bland, like, oh, that was good. Okay, then it's over with, right? But it's kind of like art. You want to walk away and think about it and embed it in your life. And how can I figure this out? How can I do better? How can I make that better? That's art to me. That's real art.
Yeah. One of the things that is so frustrating sometimes for Black artists and Black actors, right? In my work with Actor of the Union here, and I am an actor, I have an acting studio, the Actors Work Studio, and I'm surrounded by actors. Most of my friends are actors of color. You hear sometimes about, like, even within the Black community of being the right kind of Black, right? I have so many different African friends who are African actors, and we heard that so much in casting here. My co-chair and I, Lisa Michelle Cornelia, she's a phenomenal actor as well. We would hear over and over from producers in terms of getting opportunities for the Black actors here in Toronto, which 55% of the production in Toronto is U.S. service production that comes to town. You would hear a lot about how they would want actors to have more swagger. or whatever. And just all these different whistleblowing things of kind of trying to say, well, they're not the right kind of Black. Well, there are a lot of Caribbean Black people here and a lot of African Black people here. Why do actors have to sound a certain way? And we saw all the hideous coverage coming out of the UK when Meghan Markle became involved with the redhead, saying, oh, his girlfriend's straight out of Compton. She's not straight out of Compton. Even if she were, what would be the issue with that? But is that the only framework you have for Black people, especially ones from California? Like, what's wrong with you? Her mother's incredibly intelligent, well-educated, and raised this girl, and they were never straight out of Compton. So actors here struggle with that. So I would love to see stories like that represent the families that I know. I would love it if you saw a show and there was just a man and he's beautiful and you really like him, and you go home and you find out that they are Nigerian. You get to see the food that they eat, and it's not just a story about that. It's just a layer in that character's story. This conversation is so filled with synchronicity. I was talking to my girlfriend yesterday. She's a LA-based actress, and she kind of popped off and broke through for a role where she kind of played like a ghetto queen. And casting actually said to her before everything happened with the strike, can you do that voice you do in that movie? Can you do that thing that you do? And we all grow and we evolve, right? And some of the things that we've done in the past, we would no longer do. We have a stronger, we're able to more now that there's a conversation. You talked about George Floyd, like a global uprising of being like, we want to stand up for ourselves, our ancestors, the people that came before us in a better way. I'm no longer going to shuck and jive for you to get this job. I'm going to try and show up as my authentic self. That's basically where she's coming from, what she tried to say to this casting person. And she's very, very well educated and just sounds like herself, but still to this day to hear from casting, can you do that voice? Because this character is a very Black character, they would say, that we're still, the way that she speaks is not considered quote unquote Black. And she was trying to say to them, I don't do that voice anymore. I don't feel proud of that. I didn't want to do it then, and I'm not doing it now. So,
how does an educated Black woman sound when she yells? Does she sound, like Chiquita or, in the hood? I mean, why can't, it's just stereotypical with the masses and what they portray us. And I'm so happy that now that Black people are rising to tell their own stories and changing their narratives.
Yeah, me too.
Well, ladies, I think it is a wrap on this episode with tokenism and diversity. This was amazing, Samora. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so fun. And I need a list of stuff to watch because you all have very good taste. And I'm watching some very good stuff.
I'm writing down Lupin right now.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you. I can't say too much. That would be
no
appropriate.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, this man. Mm-hmm.
I'm watching tonight. I'm watching Lupin tonight.
I'm telling you, watching an over 6 foot tall, beautiful Black African man, confident, charming, running around Paris, doing his little burglaries in Jordans.
Okay, baby.
Wait, just to make sure, this isn't because I think Idris Elba has a show or a movie called Lupin, right? No, this is not that, right?
Hijack.
No, that's Hijack.
Yes, Hijack.
Oh, that's the one on Apple, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's on Apple.
Yeah.
Idris Elba's married now to a beautiful woman. It's like, ugh.
Beautiful. Yes.
And it's not me.
You can still watch. You can still enjoy it.
Yeah. My partner's watching it.
Yeah.
It's hard when you're very busy. Sometimes you fall out of the being able to watch stuff and then you try and catch up. But Lupin is definitely, if you're manifesting a life in Paris, you got to look at that. Oh my goodness, do you ever?
I'm
excited. So much for having me. If we're not friends yet on social media, find me and then we'll be able to keep up with each other.
Okay, for the whole world to know, what is your social media handle?
You can find me at Samora Gloria. I love to celebrate artists. I love emerging voices. I love to spread positivity. The world is wild, but you know what? No matter where you came from, no matter what happened to you, you have the right to make your dreams happen. And that is manifest your shit energy.
Hey. Thank you so much. And do you want to shout out any project you have going on that we can follow or what you have airing right now?
So hard because the strike. Well, you know what? I'm just going to say Janine Sherman-Burwa is a wonderful creator. She created The Kings of Napa. She created Claws. She's an amazing writer, very prolific Black woman. She is so embedded in art. She created a show called The Big Cigar. It is about Huey P. Newton and when everything kind of popped off and he had to abscond to Cuba. It is a phenomenal show. I am a part of that show. It is coming out sometime this year on a streamer. And when we come to a fair and equitable deal, I'll be able to talk more about that. But it is a beautiful story about some of the most important and impactful people in the Black Panther Party. It's super dope.
Exciting.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be, oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll talk more about it after.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and having conversation with us. We appreciate you and we've definitely enjoyed you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much and for what you do and spreading the good word and having such amazing energy. I can feel it through the screen. You're all so wonderful.
Thank you so much, Samora.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Oh man, this is season 2. This is such
That was a great start.
Oh my God. We enjoyed her. We loved her energy. She's a great human being. So we thank you some more for your time. Great segment on tokenism and diversity, crowd, audience. We hope you guys enjoyed and you know what it is. And next time when you're watching your favorite show and you can pay attention, sometimes, a lot of us don't really get to pay attention to what's out there, but now you will because you've been fed, nourished, educated, and empowered on Slates and Koffee. So next time we'll see you again. Thank you.